And we're back. CFX Download here. I'm Amy McLean, editorial director, here with my colleagues Noah Ziegler and John Saavedra.
How's it going?
Hello.
Yeah, it's been a busy week in the telecom, media, cable space. There's a lot to unpack today.
I thought we were going to be talking about Warner Brothers Discovery and that brewing bidding war, but it has to be something big to topple that.
Yeah, so it was a curveball we saw from the FCC this week. The previous administration, Jessica Rosenworcel, I would say as a reporter covering that FCC, it wasn't the most exciting time to be covering the FCC. There weren't that many big stories, but man, we sure have made up for it this year, and we're not even done with it yet, right?
Yeah, it's hard to believe that it's already been a year. Well, I guess it hasn't technically been a year with Carr.
It hasn't.
Yeah, you can tell me any number, and I'll just say yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to sort of set the scene here, earlier this week, President Trump made a comment that he was unhappy with ABC News and that their license should be revoked, which there's no license to revoke for ABC News. But he made that comment, and then he specifically called out FCC Chair Brendan Carr, what a great guy he is, which sort of set the scene for, okay, what's Carr going to do? Now, I have to tell you as a reporter, and you guys can attest to this, it's been very different covering the FCC. Was waiting and watching to see if there was anything that happened after that. And used to be you would get like a press release, maybe there's a notice on the website, maybe somebody calls you, I don't know. But that's not how we work anymore. You have to monitor Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it. You have to just constantly refresh to see if the chairman has posted something, right? And that's what happened on Wednesday, like right around 4:30. So that's that time of day that reporters are hoping to wind down. He posted a notice from the Media Bureau that tees up a network affiliate relationship item, which I want to get into, but I want to kind of set some history here. Trump has made these comments before about revoking broadcast licenses. In his first term, he suggested it a few times, and one time in particular that got a lot of press was he wanted to go after NBC's licenses in 2017. And, Chairman Pai at the time was called on to respond, and he did several times. I pulled up some notes here to see what he said back then. It took a week for him to get back to it. That was one of the criticisms. And there were a few Hill hearings on it. But, Pai said he would defend the First Amendment, and he said that repeatedly. He also talked about how other presidents have had attacks on the press. He's talked about President Kennedy targeting the Washington Post and NBC. He talked about members of the Hill asking the FCC to investigate a broadcaster, which was Sinclair, over the John Kerry Swift boat controversy. But he said ultimately, the First Amendment, and it never was this big story during his tenure, right? We had a lot of other things going on. This time around, the media is definitely in Carr's focus a lot, right? But I also want to make sure it's really clear that this wasn't something that just came up because President Trump made this mention. Before Carr was even chairman, he was already very concerned about the network relationships with these local broadcast affiliates. In December, he sent a letter to Disney, basically saying like, hey, you guys are are you putting the thumb, are you squeezing these broadcasters, these local broadcasters? And we of course saw that blow up even more with the Jimmy Kimmel saga. So while of course everyone's going to point to Trump's remarks, there's a lot bigger history here, or a longer history here, I should say. Noah, you covered the FCC meeting on Thursday, which was the day after this notice went out. Was it talked about much there?
So it was talked about afterward, and I laugh because it's, as with most FCC meetings, I think most of the reporters or people tuning in are just waiting for the post-meeting press conferences because that's when they ask the questions they really want to ask or hear kind of remarks about. But that was one of the first things that got brought up. Carr was asked, "Hey, are you gonna take action on this?" And he didn't definitively say yes or no, but he kept reiterating the line that he's kind of leaned on a lot when he does get these sorts of questions, and that's we have an obligation to hold broadcasters up to the public interest standard, which again is public. If PI is all about the First Amendment, it feels like a substitute public interest, and Carr has been leaning on that. And as you said, he did emphasize the fact that this has been something he's been focused on long before he became chairman. But nonetheless, it was brought up, and he kept also with the proceeding itself, he kept saying it's as a way to look into empowering these local stations and looking to see if the relationship between those stations and national programmers is truly dysfunctional. He said the commission has an open mind as to how it could remedy those sort of pain points for the local guys, but he offered some suggestions. But on the other hand, the lone Democratic commissioner, Ana Gomez, is pretty skeptical that the FCC can actually play an impactful role, especially when it comes to negotiations between involving a private company. But nonetheless, it's going to be interesting to see, as comments are due December 10th. Replies are due on Christmas Eve, so that's a nice little Santa's present to give there. And as you said, there's the added context of Trump's call for Carr to revoke ABC's license. And of course, a day before all of this kind of came out, Carr was on X talking about, or he posted a picture of him and Trump being together over the weekend. So it's clear that they've stayed close the past couple of weeks. They've been close for quite some time now since the transition of administrations. But that was definitely a hot topic at the in the press conferences, which and the meeting itself actually had some interesting points as well, which we can get into in a bit. But of course, that felt like kind of the overhanging sort of this is what everyone wants to talk about.
Yeah, and I think it's also really important. I mean, obviously the headlines of Kimmel and licenses, that's really exciting, but this is a much broader notice than that. It's really looking at the overall relationship between ABC, CBS, NBC, I suppose Fox, even though we don't really hear them mentioned much, and the broadcast station group owners like the Nexstars and Gray TVs and TechNet. And so it's asking questions about, are these network affiliates taking big programming like the Super Bowl and the Olympics and putting that on their streaming services like Peacock or simulcasting it on there? And is that hurting these local station groups? It also asks about negotiations for retrans, which is an important thing that broadcasters have been complaining forever that they can't do these. They're required to negotiate. Cable operators and satellite operators have to negotiate with local broadcasters, but the same doesn't apply to a YouTube TV or a Fubo. And they want that, right? They want that right. So that's something that can be teed up here. It's just a bunch of questions at this point. There's no set rule that is set to come out of this, but it's been a great time maybe to be a local broadcaster, right? There's a lot of deregulation moves happening. There's talk about loosening some of the ownership rules. They're all very excited to get bigger and bigger and consolidate. So, it's fun to cover broadcast right now.
And ownership, it wasn't on the agenda yesterday, but Ana Gomez she was asked about the ownership proceeding, and she had mentioned she doesn't think that the FCC, if they do decide to raise the 39% cap, that it wouldn't succeed in the courts. So that is, I guess, an interesting take on how they view it. But that was Carr used we have an open mind. He was asked about Chris Ruddy's comments, saying, hey, this would not be a good idea. And he said, hey, we're taking anybody and everybody's comments right now, no matter where they fall on the issue. So time will tell how they proceed with that notion.
Yeah, and John, I know you've been covering some of the scripts. There's been some scripts drama this week too with broadcasters.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I couldn't tell the excitement for deregulation from hearing Nexstar's CEO Perry Sook and Scripps CFO Jason Combs talk about it. There's a lot of talk of consolidation and combos. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Nexstar Tegna. But this week, no, I guess was it last week? Again, this week is a blur. So much has happened. So if I don't get the exact week right, please forgive me. But
recently,
previously, Sinclair, I believe it was a 13D filing. Correct me on that if I'm wrong. Saying that they had acquired a percentage of Class A shares from Scripps, and also in that filing mentioning that they'd had constructive conversations about potential merger, potential acquisition, I guess I should say. At the Wells Fargo TMT Summit this week, the Scripps CFO, Jason Combs, said that while those conversations had happened, they weren't currently happening. And he felt that the filing was maybe I don't have the exact wording in my head right now, but he called it a bit theatrical in sort of a weird way to maybe re-engage conversations, which tells me that maybe, right now that those conversations aren't happening as much as maybe Sinclair maybe hopes they were, but but also Combs is very open about the fact that consolidation is good, and that Scripps is looking at potential options, even if potential opportunities, I should say, even if it isn't with Sinclair. They are looking for other ways to maybe combine or some kind of M&A move. And this is all being done. Obviously, the reason that this is mentioned, that broadcast is moving in this direction, is because of big tech. Perry Sook especially hits hard on big tech every time that it's brought up, or that he's talking about the reasonings behind why this consolidation would be good. And it's because big tech isn't held to the same sort of regulations or stipulations as broadcast, and creating bigger broadcasting companies with more reach would be a way to compete with sort of like the reach of streaming. So I think that everyone's on the same page that combining and consolidation would be good. It's just in the way that it happens.
Yeah.
Nexstar Tegna doesn't seem anywhere near as rocky. Obviously, there's the regulatory aspect of this, which does go back to the FCC, because I forget. No, I think you have reported on this more, and the number. But their reach would be sort of a lot more than 39% national cap.
80, I think it was the number. So they just said no. Who cares about 39? Who cares if it goes up to 45? They're going 80.
Yeah. So Nexstar and Tegna put. I believe it was a broadcast license transfer application in the FCC this week, after Tegna's shareholders approved the transaction. And very specifically, Sook mentioned that obviously in this current in the current rules, a waiver would obviously be needed, but obviously we're also waiting to see what's going to happen with that broadcast ownership rule, if it's going to be eased. So there's a lot going on in broadcast, and again, all eyes on the FCC on what's going to happen there.
Yeah, and I do think it's important to note too that we talk about those big guys like Nexstar and Scripps, but even the smaller players are making some moves. Just a couple weeks ago, Circle City Broadcasting announced a deal to acquire Scripps's ABC station in Indianapolis for $83 million. And I really think this one is worth watching. This is McCoy's station in Indianapolis. He spent like $42 million back in 2019 to buy Nexstar's Indianapolis stations that are like a CW affiliate and like a My Network TV. And he couldn't get carriage for them on Dish and DirecTV because they wouldn't pay what they were paying Nexstar. Obviously, they were paying Nexstar a higher rate because they were carrying all of these Nexstar stations, right? And so he filed various lawsuits. He claimed racial discrimination. It's a Black-owned media company, majority-owned media company. All of those were tossed out. But now he has this ABC affiliate in Indianapolis, and I think that could give him some more leverage. So that's something that's worth watching. We also have someone who I haven't heard from, which I think is interesting, is Byron Allen. For a while there, he was trying to buy all these different properties. And the last I heard was some of the Allen media stations were up for sale, but that's been kind of quiet. So that's something maybe to keep an eye on and figure out what's going on there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in other consolidation news, there was a big deadline this week, right?
Yes. I mean, it's consolidation palooza, right? Like we did a consolidation episode already, but I just feel like this is going to keep happening. And we're going to keep talking about it. The nice thing is that it's like always pretty fun to report on. He said, she said, what is going on there. So there was a deadline at WBD. It was yesterday for formal bids to be submitted to WBD. For potential buyers of either the entire company or some of his assets. So right now, obviously, we've talked a bit about Paramount Skydance. They've made multiple bids. I believe the last one was for $23.50 per share. The WBD board rejected that offer. And in that time, other potential players have jumped into. I mean, I don't want to. I don't know if we can call it a bidding war yet because we don't know we don't know about the other bids in terms of like what they're offering. But obviously, Netflix and Comcast have both retained investment banks to explore offers. And the latest yesterday that came out, it was Bloomberg reporting, was that Netflix had engaged with WBD and assured them that they would honor commitments with exhibitors to have theatrical runs for WBD studio movies, which is not usually you've seen lots of headlines, I'm sure, about prominent filmmakers putting something out on Netflix and wondering why it isn't also going to theaters. It's just not really part of Netflix's strategy. It goes back to like the idea of walled gardens. Like they want people to go to their platform to watch their movie that they're paying for and producing. So this is sort of showing that Netflix would really like the streaming and studio assets from WBD, to the point where they're saying that they still put on those movies in theaters. I guess it remains to be seen. And yes, I should stress that while Paramount Skydance wants to is interested in buying the entire company, so that would include streaming studios and also all of the cable assets. Netflix and Comcast are interested specifically in streaming and studio. So Comcast would be interested reportedly in combining NBC Universal with HBO Max and Universal Pictures with the Warner Brothers studios. But that all remains to be seen. There's been a lot in the trades about Paramount Skydance courting money from the Middle East for a bigger bid. WBD, I believe, wants Paramount Skydance to get closer to $30 per share, which is quite the jump from $23.50. So I guess it remains to be seen what came in yesterday. And then, we're still waiting to hear sort of what's going on the Netflix and Comcast side. But it's all going to get very interesting. I believe that WBD is looking to make a decision by end of December. I think it was either mid-December or Christmas, around Christmas, whether it's going to sell the whole company, some of his assets, or if it's going to split as originally planned. Really quickly, obviously the original plan was for streaming and studios to split from the cable assets. That was going to become a new company called Discovery Global. Obviously that could still happen. I listened into the earnings call a couple of weeks ago, and they approached that call as if they were still splitting and what the outline for the future of both companies would be. So that's still very much a possibility. I guess we'll see.
I just have to say a big apology right now to John. John joined our team in May, and we're like, "Oh, when does the news cycle kind of slow down?" And I said, "Oh, usually around December. It's quiet." So here we have, an FCC, a really fast notice and reply comment on this FCC proceeding that's right up against Christmas Eve. We've got Warner Brothers Discovery also right up against the end of the year. So it doesn't slow down. I'm really sorry, John.
Fortunately, I like to stay busy, so I think that's fine, and especially when the stories are as interesting as they are. I have to say that it's been a ton of fun covering the consolidation side of the business, and it's all. I mean, I as you said, I've only been here 6 months, but I'm guessing this is a thing that's been happening for a while before I joined. But it sort of feels like it's heating up right now with all these different talks, and obviously I got here at right towards the end of the Paramount Skydance merger saga, and it's sort of like just been happening since then. And yeah, like I can hear the engines revving up. So December should be very interesting.
It's this or net neutrality. You got to pick one.
That's the other big. I mean, I think to take us full circle to the beginning, when you have a Republican administration, you typically have a more deregulatory regime, and that's when people start, consolidation palooza. So lots to cover. Sometimes we close these shows by talking about what we're watching on TV, and I have something special for you guys. We aren't watching it yet, but my family. So excited. We're so excited for the return of this show. We have been binging the past 4 seasons to prepare us for next week's return, the 5th season of, I'm not going to tell you the show. I'm going to show you my excitement because I like to crochet, and I made a little something for my son, and it has to do with the show. So we'll see if you can guess the show and if you know what this is.
Oh,
Dancing with the Stars.
No. Do you know what it is?
It's a Demogorgon.
Yes, it's a baby Demogorgon. So from Stranger Things. Yeah. So we're looking forward to that returning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have to stars because that would have been a really hard crochet project.
I have to do my catch up. As you guys have been rewatching, obviously you've been able to like re-examine the show and your feelings about it. Are you still excited for season 5? What are your thoughts?
Yes, and I'm a little worried just because COVID really messed this show up, right? I think season 3 was just the pinnacle, and then COVID now the kids look so old, and I'm also worried too. I personally found season 3 the best because it was such a fun season, and as a kid of the 80s, I just loved reliving my childhood a little bit without the monsters and scary things. But I think we're going to be a lot darker, and that part is a little less enjoyable to me, but that's okay. I'm still excited to see where it all ends up.
Yeah, that was my feeling exactly about season 4. It was my least favorite season. I have to start my rewatch, and I'm realizing that I'm super late on it. I'm not going to make it. Yeah, exactly. Because these episodes are like 45 hours long. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to make it, but that was the original plan, was to rewatch everything, but I almost didn't. I think I kept putting it off because I didn't want to get to season 4. But I'm curious to know if I would like it more now after a couple of years, because it's been like 2-3 years. That's the other thing, man. It takes so long for these shows to come out now.
Yeah.
That season 4 was 2023, right?
I think that's right. Maybe, yeah, I think that's right. I was in this house, so yeah, that seems right. But even that, I forget some. I'm like, I didn't like season 4 either, but then I remember there were some good things. There was the Hellfire Club. There was Chrissy.
Yeah.
I kind of forget about that along the way. So
yeah, but Noah, do you have any Stranger Things memories?
Too recent of a show for me to watch, so I haven't watched it at all.
Catching up on MASH.
Yeah. Hey.
That's our joke internally, is that while Amy and I are watching new things, Noah is in the 90s or in the 80s somewhere watching stuff that came out such a long time ago.
Before he was born.
Yeah.
Or Survivor.
Yeah. That or Survivor, or my guilty pleasure show, which I'm opening up a lot here. It's Thanksgiving, Gossip Girl season. I mean, everyone who has watched it, it is what it is. Or House of Cards, but very different shows there. But maybe I'll come around to Stranger Things in 2035, 45 maybe. We'll see. I need to give it some time to resonate.
they'll be reviving it by then. It'll be
Yeah.
like all the characters in like their 50s welcoming the next generation, right?
Yeah,
Like, that's all
instead of
gonna
11,
happen.
it'll be about 12, or maybe that'll be like 24. I don't know.
Yeah,
Somewhere.
yeah. It'll be in theaters because it'll probably be produced by Warner Brothers Discovery. So that's a joke. But, yeah.
Or Netflix.
Or Netflix, yeah.
Well, on that note, by the way, that I believe it releases November 26th. If you're like me, anxiously waiting, and next week is Thanksgiving, or this week, depending on when you're watching it. So I hope everyone has a happy holiday, and we will see you on the next episode.